Gary Fahey, mental strength and performance coach.
So, what inspired you to help others?
Well, I mean, I suppose it's a long story, but it's probably a story that most people that help others have, and that is that at some stage I needed a hell of a lot of help myself. I was, somebody who lived a very good life. I had to all those people looking in, I had a very successful life, very successful career. However, even at the height of that success, inside I was struggling a lot. I battled a 10-year major depressive disorder, as well as a gambling addiction that cost me $2 million, cost me my career, cost me my reputation, and had me very much considering the value of my own life. And at that point in time, it wasn't about helping others; it was about helping myself. And through that process, learning about the neuroscience, the psychology, how it affects people in high performance, habit formation. I learned a lot about myself, and over time, I found that it was something that other people were struggling with, and that I had an experience in, and also now an education and a position that I'd had to work back from.
Yeah, what is it about, men sometimes not being one with their feelings?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult place to be, and certainly that was my experience. It's sometimes it seemed like a strange situation where looking back now, I know that there was probably a 10-year period there where I was battling depression, but I reckon for at least 7 of those, I was masking it even from myself. And I think that a lot of that comes down to the identity that we give to ourselves, that we take in from the rest of the world. And for me, I was a problem solver. In my job, I was a problem solver, and so coming to terms with the fact that there was something in my life that I needed to fix, it just didn't resonate with me. So my own subconscious would block it out. If I had a problem, then how could I be a problem solver? Or if I'm responsible for the security and safety of my family, how can I be vulnerable? That's the question that goes on inside, inside a lot of people's minds, but in particular inside men's minds. Harden up. It's okay. I'll be fine once I get a holiday. I've just got to keep working. All of these ideas and identities that we build up are valuable to us, at a particular point in time, but they're also dangerous if we hold on too tightly to them and can't, and begin to mask our own feelings, our own vulnerabilities, and the areas of our life that we have to work on.
Yeah, what are some of the things you work on with your clients?
Yeah, one of the very first things is identity. I'll find quite often that even people that are really successful and don't realize they're struggling very much, they have a disjointed attachment to their identity, or they don't have a conscious identity. And there's a lot of people that I work with, when I ask them a question, "Who are you?" they will answer me with most likely their job or their family situation. It's very difficult for somebody to actually articulate to themselves who they are as a person, what their character traits are, what their values are. And what tends to happen is, in the absence of that conscious identity, we all become a victim of conditioning, the things that we've always done. We become a victim of comfort, the things that are easy, and we become a victim of circumstance, the external world around us. And so I think what happens largely is we create a narrative and a story around a version of an identity, and that doesn't really ring true to us. So most places I start with people is literally, let's figure out who you are, and then we can figure out how we're going to start living like that person.
Yeah, how does it feel or how does helping others help your own journey?
Well, it's every time I work with somebody, I learn a lot more about my own circumstances. And the thing that I have learned across the last 8 years is that almost everybody is experiencing something very similar,
Yeah.
um, except for the fact that there's different symptoms, there's a different storyline, or there's a different input. But at the fundamental level, the feelings end up being the same. And so every time that I work with somebody and I hear a new story, I've learnt to put myself in that story and figure out, how does that story make sense to me in my life? Where has that person's um, vulnerability shown up in my life, and how can I learn a little bit more about how that works inside my head, inside my family, inside my work. And I find that every time I get a chance to work with somebody, it just takes me a little bit further in, not just my own feelings of security, I suppose, or of a conscious identity, but also in understanding more about everybody else. Because the more stories I hear, again, the more similar they just sound. A little bit of different inputs, but deep down, they all based in very similar starting points.
What do you do to help your own mental health?
I do quite a lot these days. For a long time, I did nothing, certainly nothing consciously. I think there's a period of time where a lot of people, and again, probably men in particular, but a lot of people do things that they say are for their mental health, right? So, I used to exercise a lot. I would listen to podcasts, I suppose. I would talk to people about psychology, and I was, interested in reading and watching things about psychology. And somewhere in my mind, it would trigger something that said, "Oh, you're actually working on your mental health, so you're fine. You don't have to worry about this." But I don't think it was ever a conscious practice. It wasn't something I literally sat down and said, "Right, this is important, and I should do these things for my mental health." And so I was doing things that are beneficial, but I wasn't actually getting the benefit from them. And so these days, I'm very conscious about everything I do in my life. To be honest, I don't usually make decisions that I haven't thought through. I make a conscious effort to have a process, a routine, checks and balances, conversations with those closest to me. Sometimes it looks very similar day after day, the routine, but there's a kit bag of things that I need to work on, not for my mental health, but to make me, a better person, and to help me grow and to help me keep moving forward. And the the great benefit of that is that my mental health is a significant player in the best version of me. And so it really comes down to a bunch of routines, some self-awareness practices, some journaling, and a lot of standard routines that people will see. But I'm not sure that the thing is necessarily the answer, but it's the fact that you make it conscious and a conscious part of your mental strength or your practice.
When I was doing my research, I saw your Facebook page, and you do a lot of mini videos with tips and helping others. What is that process like?
Yeah, it's probably difficult for me. It's especially considering I spent 18 years when I was with the federal police. 18 years was more about staying out of the public eye. Was trying to avoid, and to be fair, I kind of missed the Facebook era. I joined the federal police before Facebook existed, and by the time I left, Facebook was already a phenomenon. And I think at the time, I had a Facebook account with about 8 friends, and so it's not a native place for me. It's a place that I find is a challenge, and that's probably one of the great reasons for me to do it. But I do enjoy the process, as challenging as it is for me at times, and that's because it challenges me to think what might resonate with other people. It challenges me to think more broadly about my own strategies, and most, if not all, probably all actually, the tips that I give are tips that I've used personally, or at least used in coaching, that I know work through experience, not through reading. And it also opens my mind up because I engage in that process. Everywhere I go these days, I'm interested in learning so that perhaps it can benefit somebody else through that, through those tips, or through those, little stories, or reels, or whatever they are.
And with police, you're a part of some people's worst day. and you have to, be strong for them. How important is it for police and any first responders to have their own support system?
It's vital, and I think it's something that is still being worked through a lot in the first responders world. And it's interesting. Again, a lot of the research now that I've done, there's a great, I suppose it's a story. It's called the Canesian Beauty Contest, and the research project was, if I gave you 100 pictures, or let's say it's 100 pictures of people, and I asked you to rank them in attractiveness order, you would create a particular order. But if I then said to you, you need to rank them in order that you think somebody else will rank them in, you will most likely change your order around because you think you want to suit somebody else. And that goes another step further, where you can change the order around to what you think other people will order it based on what they think other people will order the attractiveness. And the reason I bring that up is because what I find in first responders is often there's a lot of first responders that, I'm not going to say that they're struggling, but there are certainly things that happen in their lives that could warrant some more investigation or perhaps some discussion with people. Excuse me. But certainly from my case, what I experienced was somewhere in my subconscious, I wasn't worried about what I was thinking about my struggle. I was worried about what somebody else would think, and potentially what somebody else would think other people were thinking about my struggle. And that was what prevented me from even recognizing it myself, for a long period of time. And so, I think there is definitely a reason and a need for first responders, or anybody really, to be able to compartmentalize feelings for a particular amount of time. Because, like I've said before, I'm a husband, I'm a father. If something goes wrong in my family, I do have a responsibility to stand up, or to be the guy that people come to, to be the strong one, or to be the one that my wife says at 3 a.m, did you hear that noise? You've got to go and check what it is, right? That's my role. That is who I want to be. So I think it is okay for the compartmentalization of things in our mind and our feelings, but that also has to be joined with a self-awareness that there are times when that compartment needs to open. And I think what men do a lot, what first responders do a lot, is they're very good at the compartmentalizing, but then they just keep compartmentalizing, and they keep pushing and pushing it down and pushing it down, instead of recognizing that for this moment in time, putting it in a compartment is absolutely correct. But in that moment in time, that compartment needs to open, and I need to let it out, deal with it, talk about it, go through it, experience it, whatever the term happens to be. And I think that is probably, or hopefully, where the next line of mental health in frontline work, or in all of life, is going.
What are some of the things that motivate you?
Well, I mean, deep down, it's my own values motivate me, and I've done a lot of work on my own identity. And the great thing, I think, everybody I've worked with, the great thing is that most people's values and identity, it motivates them from a personal point of view, but it all involves being with other people, or supporting other people, or making sure other people learn from their experiences. And that's certainly my case. What motivates me now is intrinsic. It's my purpose, and my purpose is ultimately to make sure that my pain means something. And that to me means I have to be better based on the experiences in my life. I have to learn from them in all facets, not just to do with the worst parts of my life, and making sure that they mean something by telling the world and helping people out, but also the little things that go in life, and to make sure that I'm a better husband, a better father, a better member of a family, that I look after my health, that I look after our financial security, that I look after my mental health. And in doing so, to me, that extends to what I do for work. It really does. It lights me up. I will have, even conversation with you here this morning, conversations with clients. My time stands still during those periods, and that to me tells me that I land in in a good place, in the right place. And so I think whilst it's selfish because it is my purpose, my identity, and that's what motivates me to be better for me, it naturally involves using what I've, learnt, earned, through life in making sure that, or helping others not to go through what I have.
Where do you want to see your mission in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, that's a great question, and look, I'm a big pie in the sky thinker, and look, I would love to see that it became more mainstream, I suppose, for conscious thought, conscious identity, conscious decision making to be apparent in the world. Um, Most of what I see going on, most of the struggles that people have tend to come because decisions get made less than consciously. They're going with the flow, or they're following something on Instagram, and that seems to be the right thing today, and then tomorrow it's something different. And it's in that uncertainty where I think a lot of people find their struggle. And I work with people that have issues with addiction, depression, PTSD, performance anxiety, and to be honest, I really don't care what people do with their lives, right? And in fact, as weird as this sounds, often when I work with somebody with an addiction, let's say an alcohol addiction, I will tell them, I don't care if you drink. You're an adult. You get to make your own choices. Just make your own choices. And I think that is one of the areas that, in life we tend to look over the fact that we do get to make the choice of what we do. We are responsible for the thoughts, feelings, and actions that we take. And often just that simple bit of permission for people to say, I don't care if you drink, you're an adult, you make the choice. Often that's a big enough catalyst to actually get them to start shifting their behavior, because people do things for a long time that they don't realize they're actually making the choice to do it. And I'd really love to see in 3 to 5 years that, that message, I suppose, becomes more apparent, not necessarily therapy or, working on yourself, but just be conscious about what you do today. And, maybe it's a little challenge for anybody that is listening or watching, this at any particular time. For the rest of today, be conscious about the decisions you make, all of them. Now, most of them you won't be conscious about because we, make some ridiculous 30,000 decisions a day or something. But, some of the things when you are getting dressed, be conscious about what you're putting on and ask yourself, why am I wearing this today? When you're eating your food, why am I eating this food right now? Not because I'm hungry, but why is it this food? And, it seems simple, but if you practice it one day when it's important and you need to make a conscious decision for your own health and well-being, you're going to have the practice on board to make a good one.
How can people reach out to you and learn more?
Well, you can find me, my website, garyfahey.com, is where most of my website stuff is. You can also get my socials through there, but my social media is Strong Mend on Facebook, or strong.mend, MEND, on Instagram, and that's where you can see some of those tips. And I've been in a little hiatus over Christmas, so in the next couple of weeks there'll be some new ones coming out as well there. So hopefully people find those. But if you Google me, you'll probably find the worst of my life and the best of my life in there as well. And one of those links will probably get you to my stuff.